we are talking about food, we are talking about water, and we are talking about our environment. That is what is at the core of this discussion. And my brother cautioned that we don't politicize this discussion, but at the end of the day, he himself fell in that trap of trying to politicize it, making references to statements supposedly made by some of our national officers in the past. And I'm trying hard not to follow suit. You know, it is difficult to.
I was only making reference.
Yes. Because if we are talking about statements that people have made in the past, where in this country when Dr. Ayuwafri, MP for Efijase, is my very good friend, you know, on political platforms, saying that they were not going to stop this Galamsey because when they stop it, they were going to lose the election. We were in this country, we heard all that. You know, it is difficult to say that you will not bring the politics in it, because the people that have the mandate, you and I, we don't have the powers. We don't wield executive powers. It is the president and the government that wields executive powers. So it is the actions of the president and his people that will let us know whether we are really committed to fighting this menace or not. I listened to my brother Kwesi Adakwa and some of the propositions he was making, and you know, knowing where he is coming from, most of them are either philosophical or ideological in nature, in terms of ownership, in terms of government taking control of the mines, government owning the mines, and then running the mines and all that. These are ideological issues that have their own consequences, you know, and people also argue against government trying to own them and government running it by themselves. So for those ones, they may sound sweet, nice ideologically, but in terms of its practical implementation, whether it will yield the results that we are looking for, it's also another thing. I don't think I will interrogate that much. I want to focus on what has happened so far. You know, we have come from a situation where we started using small tools, shovel, axe, and all that to mine, and that was these they were calling Galamsey, gather and sell. Followed some of these operations on the ground, you will realize the complex nature of the situation. If you get to, for example, if there's a Galamsey going on at Samai in my region, and you get to Osino, the junction from Osino to Samai, you will see people selling plantain, people selling oranges, people behaving like they are Okada people and all that. These are all people who work for the Galamseyers. In fact, most of them are spies. At the end of the month, the Galamseyers pay them. So even before an operation happens, those in the forest would have gotten the news that they have seen military men, armed military men coming in there and all that. So they have become sophisticated as compared to the people we knew were engaged in Galamsey in the past. And so we must also increase our capacity in terms of our response, in terms of how we prevent, in terms of how we detect, and in terms of how we remedy the situation or how we correct the situation. We must increase capacity. And I think that, for me, that is one thing that as a country we seem to be lacking. Because now the galamseyers seem like what Che will say 2-3 mini Vietnams. Most often government is overwhelmed by the many galamseyers, and mobilizing resources to fight them become an issue. And Kwesi also talked about problematization, what the problem is, because sometimes how you see the problem determines your response. If you see it as just criminals who are in the forest destroying our forest, your response will be different from if you see them as people who are fighting for their livelihood. So the way you problematize the issue also determines what response that you should put in. And what have we done in the past? We have mainly sought to militarize the operations in terms of fighting it. So you hear Operation Hot, Operation Vanguard, and all that, trying to militarize it. And it works to some extent, but that solution too has not been sustainable, because you can't keep the military men in the forest forever. You can't keep them on the riverside forever. You can't keep them in the communities where galamsey happens forever. It is unsustainable. It is already, we are running tight budget as a country, and to mobilize the military, send them in there, feed them, resource them, and all that, it's also a cost. So these solutions that we have been providing, the militarized solutions, have not been sustainable over time. And I think that is the reason why I commend the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, for taking this particular approach to widen the accountability. I think the engagement with the CSOs is a form of widening the monitoring and accountability. In the past, the effort has been left only to government, mobilize operations, go on targeted operations, and then that is all. So what civil society does is to just report back, feedback on some few metrics. You will see people, they will go and fetch water from a particular river, display them on TV, that this is the state of our water, and that is all. So civil society in the past have become passive supporters of the fight. But government now, the president now, want them to be actively, to take part of this fight. And going forward, I will suggest that, for example, they have to be integrated into the NIMOS. I've seen the composition of NIMOS, the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. I've seen the composition and all that. It should be widened, because once the civil society comes in, what they help to do is to provide us with authentic metrics. So it is not like today lawyer will go to a river and just fetch water and say the water is dirty. We must have authentic metrics. And I'm happy yesterday the Ghana Water Resources, they gave us some figures. It means that continuously we are measuring turbidity and all that. But there are other metrics that must also come out. For example, in terms of arrests, in terms of prosecutions, in terms of equipments that are seized, which locations are those equipment, who are the owners of those equipment. And there must be a national transparent dashboard sponsored or led by civil society and government together, where everybody can just quickly go there and say, let's say on 1st October, if some machines or equipment were seized, on 10th October, I can independently go and verify whether these machines are there. Because what we hear in the past is that these machines are seized, and then after some time, they get back to their owners, and then they are back on the field. So when the president throws so much sunshine, what corruption hates is sunlight. So if you say big men are involved, politicians are involved, chiefs are involved, civil society will help us expose them. And I also think that who owns a concession, ownership of concession and all that are opaque. It becomes very difficult for people to be held accountable. You know, in Ghana, what people do not normally like is name calling. So if you go to my concession, if I'm a concession owner and Galamsey is happening there, and the media start blowing up, hey, you are involved in Galamsey, you will know the next day, if I truly own the concession, you find out that the person becomes responsible and start doing the right thing. So we must throw more sunshine. It is not just about the militarized operations. As a people, we must throw more sunshine on the issue of fighting Galamsey. And the engagement with civil society by the president is a good step and a first step towards throwing sunshine on the fight against Galamsey. One thing that came up yesterday, for example, is in terms of improvement in technology. The president mentioned improvement in technology. Because one of the issues is that we are also mining inefficiently. Like my brother mentioned, you are given a concession, 25.2 acres. That is the largest size for a particular concession. Now, because we are not mining precisely, we are not doing precision mining, we are unable to accurately tell that these particular locations are where the minerals are deposited. So the concession owner, what it does is what people call lottery mining. So they degrade the whole place, they excavate the whole 25.2 acre land, and then hoping that they will find the mineral deposits in there. Thank God there's technology now. And the president mentioned it yesterday, that it is one of the things that we are going to study and adopt, where they can accurately locate particular places where the minerals are deposited. In that case, then the mining is localized. You are able to contain it without necessarily destroying large portions of the lands. So technology is very, very important in this particular fight. So it is not just about military operations, but it is also to bring in support for those who have been legally licensed to mine. And I think that is one thing that I was very happy about. And if we integrate it, if we institutionalize, and adopt technology in this whole fight, we will minimize the impact on the environment. The other thing is the famous or infamous call for the LI, is it 2468, to be repealed.
2462.
2462 to be repealed. And the Attorney General made indications that when Parliament sits, it will be tabled and replaced with LI 2501 to effectively repeal that regime. In fact, that law didn't make sense. That law didn't just make sense. It only exposed close to 288 forest reserves to, what the people, my brother is calling environmental terrorists. Because the moment you make a law that activities can happen in a forest reserve, then you are opening every forest reserve for any activity, including mining. And you know that people, they started granting license to people to mine in the forest areas based on that law that was promulgated in 2022. To the extent that, alarmingly, even this reserve, Kakum was even a candidate, you know, for an activity, a mining activity to happen in there. You know, Kakum was being put up as a concession for people. You see, so that is the action of government that we cannot look away and say we are depoliticizing the Galamsey fight. The action of government will let the people know whether you are indeed serious to fight it or not. So once we say we have repealed this law, you can't mine in the forest reserve. I don't know how many reserves are left now, because some of the forests were almost gone. It's been mined away. Doesn't exist as a reserve anymore. I don't know how many of our 288 reserves are left. But we need to protect the rest. You can't mine in a forest reserve. It becomes criminal, and the consequences must be dire when you are found going close to mining in a forest reserve. Same as our water bodies. I listened yesterday, and we are even proposing that you should not mine just 1 kilometer, but 2 kilometers away. You should stay off 2 kilometers away from any water body. And, you know, the chamfai and all that is like the FPSO that is used for drilling oil. That is also the FPSO for the Galamseyers. You know, they station it on the river, you know, and the effect is there. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know whether a mere display of the chamfai machine constitutes a crime or not. You know, I'm not very sure. You know, because if you see them, you know that indeed these things, these are the purpose for which they exist. You know, but once you are not seeing them either by the riverside or on the river, I don't know what the implications are. That is for the lawyers to decide. So for me, I think that this government, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has a clear pathway to resolving this Galamsey menace once and for all. We have tried several, you know, options, and those options we found are unsustainable. We need new ways of doing that combines both support for small-scale miners, because we can't say. In fact, I know that there are people who are paranoid to the point that they feel that we should ban small-scale mining in its totality. I don't know whether Kwesi belongs to that group.
I belong to that group.
Well, for the period, what does the for the period mean? You understand? There are people who I know, because of let's say desperation or frustration, they feel that we don't have the capacity yet to be able to regulate and manage small-scale mining as we call it now in Ghana, and they feel that because of that we should ban small-scale mining in its totality, so that we focus on our large-scale mines and then the very small royalties that we get from it, until the point in time where we feel that we have the competence, we have the capacity, we have the know-how to be able to regulate it. We shouldn't do it at all. I know there are people who belong to that school of thought, you know, but we must keep trying. I think so. Even though in Ghana, I know sometimes we give little room for experimentation and try and error and all that. I feel that let us keep trying. Let us looking at best practices. Yesterday, the president said it, that we are not alone in this fight. There are other countries that are also fighting this menace. And there are success stories. You mentioned Chile, for example. There are success stories of how they've been able to come out of it, where they are able to regulate, they are able to prevent people from just destroying the land and still get the yield that they need to manage the economy. Because we are trying, and that is your third topic, we are trying to look at ways of escaping a cyclical IMF dependency. You cannot do that just by word of mouth or by saying you are an anti-imperialist. So by philosophy or by some beliefs or some ideology, you just want to escape it. You need to practically show that you are economically dependent on yourself to be able to do that. And if you have resources that can help you to do that, you need to harness that resources. So we can't sit down and say, yeah, we don't have the, we are not getting solutions to it, so totally we should go off. We should put in place mechanisms as far as we can to be able to avoid that. So I also think that this engagement with the civil society should not just be a one-time thing. The president should continue, and I know this is how the president works. When he announced that he wanted to meet civil society, I heard our brothers from the other side that we people campaigned and said that you have solutions and all that. Why are you now calling people for ideas? If you know the president, that is how our president works. He will not pretend that the knowledge of this country or about different domains in this country reposite only in his party members or in his government. There are a lot of people who sit out of government. And yesterday, if you look at the contributions that came, you are able to see that different shades of people also have different perception on how we should move this fight forward. So for me, I think it was a good exercise yesterday. I think we have a clear direction. NIMOS has been empowered to continue to work. But like I said, illegal mining cuts across several domains. So the membership of NIMOS should be expanded. In the 5th generation, we have what we call collaborative regulation. Now we are talking about IT technology. Let us bring Ministry of Communication in. What can they contribute to the fight? We are talking about, if you look at the whole supply chain, people who are supplying them with fuel and all that. Are we able to trace where the fuel comes from and where it goes? Ministry of Energy, and for that matter, MPA must come in. Let us expand NIMOS to include everybody who has a role to play in the whole supply chain, so that at the end of the day, we'll have a solution that is not just a lazy solution that will say, oh, let us stop the whole thing because we are frustrated. But at the end of the day, we protect our environment whilst getting the impact, the economic impact that we need to also get from it.